Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys MCU Disney Plus 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped a link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys MCU figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, they did keep it pretty simple. Instead of going with figure photography on the front, instead this is like an oil painting look image of Tatiana Maslany as She-Hulk. I dig the purple glow around the edge. It does help the image of her pop against the purple background. Down below we have a She-Hulk show logo done in high gloss, and her name in metallic foil. On the side of the box, we actually do have some figure photography, but they've turned down the opacity of this image of She-Hulk so that she blends in with the purple background. Down below, these glossy green stripes, yes, contrast against all of this purple, but they sort of remind me of the stripes on Daredevil's gloves and gauntlets. I'm not sure if that was intentional or just a happy accident. Around the back, all the boring stuff: warnings, legal information, and Hot Toy store locations. Oh, and by the way, there is some more figure photography on the other side of the box. Whoa, I knew this figure was going to be big. I've seen the prototype in person myself, but I guess I just forgotten how truly massive this piece is. She takes up almost the entire clam tray. Underneath the slipcover, there's an open window showcasing She-Hulk and all of her accessories inside. I see what you've done, Hot Toys, using purple mostly for the outer box, then green predominantly for the inside one. It's a very clever way of doing justice to both of She-Hulk's primary colors, the green and the purple. On both sides of the box, we've got different shots of the figure herself, and a huge full-color image of She-Hulk around the back. I've got a lot of questions about this figure, so without further ado, let's get her out here. What are those questions? Well, number one, how does the body feel in hand? Number two, is this figure heavy? And number three, how does she scale next to other 1/6 scale figures? First in-hand impressions? She-Hulk is extremely heavy, and this is a lot of medical silicone. What we're going to do now is get all of her accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything she comes with. Starting off with her display base first. If, for a character like She-Hulk, they're giving us a normal hexagonal base, then why the hell do they keep coming back to those diamond bases for normal-sized 1/6 scale figures? It's a real head-scratcher in my opinion. Up on top, we've got LA in this glossy green section straight through the middle, a She-Hulk logo. Then for the purple sections, they're a little bit more textured and grippy. Around the front, She-Hulk, straightforward, and up top, an oversized extendable crotch grabber. This accessory is a little cringe. It's a matte black unpainted piece of plastic for the cell phone, and a sticker for the screen. On the screen, we've got a login page for a dating app. It does say Jen Walters up top for the username. If you can't quite make that out on camera, you'll just have to see it for yourself in person when you get your copy of She-Hulk. Lastly, a full array of hands, ranging from these action dynamic pose splayed out finger ones to the Hulk clap pose hands, and they've even painted the fingernails in a darker green with a gloss over the top. Some phone holding / phone interacting pointing finger hands, almost relaxed open palm hands, and two closed fists. I currently have them installed on the body. What we're going to do now is get She-Hulk herself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. This figure is evidence of the fact that a show doesn't have to be well received for a figure to be exceptional. This figure is sick. Seriously, she has so much presence. The proportions and seamlessness, if that's a word, of the body blow my mind. I highly doubt we're going to see another She-Hulk for a while at least from both Hot Toys and in the MCU. So them investing this much money in new technologies and molds for a limited production one-off is crazy to me. She's going to be one of those figures that folks skip now, and when the MCU eventually gets around to redeeming the character, which is something they've been known to do, just look at Trevor Slattery, they're going to be hunting down this figure on the aftermarket. I would say that if you're a comic book She-Hulk fan and you want a figure that's visually just impressive and is going to stand out, you could do a hell of a lot worse than this. Close and personal, kicking things off with She-Hulk's head sculpt. Say what you will about the show, I know it wasn't for everyone. But in figure format, Hot Toys killed it with this sculpt. I reckon it looks exactly like the CGI model. Essentially a much larger and greener Tatiana Maslany. There's plenty of skin texture on the surface of the face, both sculpted and painted. The lips have been picked out in pink so they contrast against the green skin. Now, the hair is made of this rubbery PVC material. It's quite flexible. It's basically just sculpted plastic. There's a hell of a lot of it. Her hair does get longer and more voluminous when she becomes She-Hulk. Around the back, we've got all of this texture with the individual strands sculpted in, and there's plenty of flow to it. But this is my favorite detail, the little individual bits of rubbery plastic hanging off the edge that, from a distance, do a pretty good job of making it look like this could be real hair. Would an artisan version of She-Hulk be something that I would be interested in? Absolutely, I love my rooted hair figures. That's not to say this looks bad, especially from the front. The fringe with the wave over the top and then the layered bits of plastic. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints with the way Hot Toys have done the hair. An artisan version would be welcome sometime in the future. For now, I'm more than happy with this. They've even gone so far as to add some glossy strands in amongst the matte black, so when light bounces off the surface, there's just more depth to it. They have sculpted the texture for the hair on the underside as well, so if you have her in a pose where that is visible, it's not just going to be one smooth piece of plastic. If you're wondering how the moving eyes work, you have to remove the head sculpt, then you can move them round. It's on this new clip mechanism thing. They've been using that with their most recent moving eye figures. And this time they've cast it in green plastic rather than translucent, which is a good thing because translucent plastic gets brittle over time. Now, to move the eyes, you can use the included tool if you want to, or you can just use your finger. Because the head sculpt is quite large, using your finger isn't actually that difficult. Whereas for Mighty Thor, for example, it was. With some side-eye and them looking up underneath her brow, this head sculpt, in my opinion, comes to life. I'm not sure as of yet which eye position I'm going to go with. Just weigh in down in the comments below. Which side do you think is this head sculpt strongest? The left or the right? Absolutely. A head tilt now thrown into the mix, looking up from underneath her fringe. Yeah, I'll let this simmer a little, but I reckon I might just go with this angle. I know I asked y'all to let me know which you prefer, and I'll still wait and see what you say. This is definitely growing on me. Now let's talk about her silicone body. It is seamless from head to toe, except for the wrist pegs. That's the only visible joint on this entire piece. They did try and hide that a little. We'll get to it in a minute. Unfortunately, unlike with Thor from Love and Thunder, there is no molded, or I'm not exactly sure how they do the silicone. Is it cast? But there's no skin texture sculpted, embedded into the surface of it. It's just that speckling of paint over the top. That is in stark contrast with the head sculpt. If you are going to sculpt in skin texture for the face, but not everything else, I reckon you need to reevaluate that. You want everything to match, right? So either do sculpted skin texture for both, or neither. There's even a subtle green mismatch between the face, because that's PVC plastic, and the silicone skin. Surely they could have painted the head sculpt to match the body a little bit better. I'm going to explain it away by saying she's got green makeup on. Probably not likely, but that's what I'm going to go with. If you've not yet experienced a modern day Hot Toys seamless figure using this new medical silicone, you're missing out because this stuff is the shit. It's so smooth and soft and supple feeling, and when you bend it, it creases and wrinkles like real human skin would, which just adds to the realism. Unfortunately, it's not perfect, it still does have its drawbacks. The skin texture being one of them, and the other is that you can see some visible seam lines under certain lighting up close and personal. From a distance, under standard lighting, maybe not as much, still it's worth noting they are present. The seam, interestingly enough, is more prominent on the left side of my copy of She-Hulk's body as compared to the right. It may vary from batch to batch and figure to figure. Underneath the silicone for both the arms and the legs, they've used a metal endoskeleton. That adds a substantial amount of weight to this piece. Was it entirely necessary? No, I don't think so. The reason why they did it is so that the joints were sturdy enough so they could fight against the silicone and keep the arms and legs locked in to dynamic poses. But if they'd have gone with a plastic body, ratchet joints likely would have been able to do the same exact thing. Now, coming down to the wrists, they've done this pull-out joint for the wrist peg. It's not me removing the hand, it literally can slide up and down, so you can dial in the pose of the hand, then you can push it back up, so the base of it cups the end of the silicone forearm, and it closes up that gap a little. It's not entirely seamless, of course you can still see it, but it's better than having this huge and ugly visible wrist peg present. Oh, they've clearly been doing their homework when it comes to material science, because the black parts of the outfit are made of this extremely stretchy spandex material. Yes, there is screen printing over the top for all of the suit texture, but I don't think it's going to stick to itself. It's not sticky, and we don't have long sleeves or long pants, so there's no real way for one piece of fabric to come in contact with another piece somewhere else on the outfit. Even the purple and white panels, they're made of a rubbery material, they're soft and flexible too. The outfit is tight enough that it shows off her physique, yet it's not going to get in the way of posing. That metallic pinstriping though, when light bounces off it, it just pops. You can adjust the outfit because it's not glued in place or anything, it's just free floating over the top of the silicone. Speaking of the silicone, these legs just look so real. The definition for the knee and the muscle tone and the shading and the skin texture, they have to be some of the most realistic legs I've ever seen from Hot Toys. Coming down to her high-topped shoes, we've got a zipper sculpted in on the inside, and it looks like they're a solid piece of plastic, but they're not. They're made of a soft rubber, and there's a ratcheted joint on the inside, so we have toe articulation. This is something that they've been experimenting with, and I love to see it. Going forward, Hot Toys, please keep doing this. Aw, family photo. For a quick side-by-side comparison, we've got She-Hulk, Jen Walters, and then on her right, her cousin, Bruce Banner, Professor Hulk. This is the Avengers Endgame version. As you can see, Bruce is the taller of the two, and that's accurate, he is supposed to be the taller of the two Hulks. The colours aren't quite right. She-Hulk is too saturated, and Professor Hulk is too muted. Somewhere in between these two greens would be about right, and I've just looked up some images from the show. They should be a lot closer in colour than they actually are. Next up, She-Hulk's version of Daredevil. This was pretty much his first MCU appearance in the yellow and red. I happen to really like Matt in the show, but I know not everyone did. She-Hulk towers over Daredevil. Going over articulation, starting off with her head sculpt. It's on a double ball peg underneath the silicone neck, but she's got a lot of sculpted hair. I'm curious to see if it's going to get in the way. Looking forward to there, further than I expected, honestly. Looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. Her arms and torso, they're one piece, so do be mindful that if you leave the arms up in a pose for a long period of time, you may crease the silicone underneath the outfit. Luckily, it's underneath the outfit, so you'd never really know unless you take it off and decide to do some sort of custom. The arms will go up to there, going forward and back. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. There's no swivel at the bicep, instead it's at the elbow joint. If you want to access it, I suggest bending the elbow first, then you'll be able to move it left and right way more easily than trying to grab the arm up here and the silicone will be moving around underneath your fingers. There's a double bend at the elbow going past 90. Before you move the hand on the ratcheted hinge and swivel, just make sure you're pulling the joint out first so that you're not putting any unnecessary pressure or adding any friction to the surface of the silicone when it's tucked underneath the hand. We've got multiple joints at the torso crunching forward to there, going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. Medical silicone legs all the way down, going forward to there, that's a crazy range of motion, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee on ratchets, easily going past 90. And then for the ankles, a hinge and swivel plugged in at an angle. That means, yes, it's good for forward and back and rotation, but instead of having to rotate the joint inside the boot to get ankle tilt, you can just access it right away and we still get the benefits of having a hinge and swivel. It's a much more secure joint over and above a double ball peg. But by far my favorite point of articulation is the toe joint. It's ratcheted and the boots are soft enough that you can ratchet it up a couple of clicks. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is the skin tone and skin texture mismatch between the head sculpt and everything else. I know why it's a thing, but still, I reckon they could have gotten it a lot closer than they did. The second annoying thing isn't a big deal for me, but I reckon it's still worth mentioning. It's the seam lines on the arms and the legs. Having them on the outside rather than around the back, I don't reckon was the right call. They are less noticeable in normal lighting from a distance, but up close in your cabinet, if you've got LED light strips above, you are going to see them. The third annoying thing is so minor, so trivial, that it's barely worth mentioning. I was sitting here racking my brain trying to think of something else I didn't like about the figure. But I couldn't, so I ended up going with the display base. It's a little bit too small in my opinion. They could have gone with the larger footprint quarter scale figure / Thanos display base with the square edges, not that diamond thing. And I reckon it would have looked better than the hexagon base they ended up going with She-Hulk standing on top of it. The first cool thing is the outfit is just so flexible feeling. It's this lightweight, stretchy spandex. There is screen printing over the top, so you have to be a little bit careful with how you pose her. But still, there's enough of an air gap that I don't think it's going to wrinkle or stick to itself in most poses. The second cool thing is all the medical silicone. This stuff is used for actual human prosthetics, so it needs to be durable, and it needs to be paintable. That's how they can capture all of this skin texture and muscle definition on the surface. Plus, when you bend it, it actually wrinkles like real human skin would. The third cool thing is the built-in mechanism they've tried to use to obscure the wrist pegs. It's not perfect, but at least they gave it a go. You can extend out the hands to move them, then you can collapse them in. The base part of the hand is contoured to perfectly cup the top part of the silicone underneath it, and that way it minimizes the gap between the silicone and the PVC hand. Wrapping up on Hot Toys She-Hulk. Mid-show, but a masterclass of a figure. This is what I love about Hot Toys. When they hit hard. If we look at their releases in phases like the MCU, then we're in the realism saga right now. moving eyes for every figure, medical silicone bodies, and killer proportions with custom bodies specific to each character. They're making less stuff, yes, like nothing from Secret Invasion or Miss Marvel, but they're instead heavily investing into getting the figures right that they do end up making. Is that a winning strategy long term because we're collectors and we like to have a full shelf of characters from MCU films and TV shows? Maybe. Quality over quantity is an age-old saying normally. The thing is with Hot Toys, we're used to both. So at the end of this, I'm enamored with this piece from the sculpt to the outfit and the body. 10s all round. This figure for Hot Toys is a big fat W. I just wish the show was better because for most people, this is going to be an immediate skip, and that is a darn shame. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped a link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.